Okay, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to our council activity briefings. First up, we are on business support, so we welcome Tanya up the front, and we've got Paul and Michelle standing in for Gordon. So report starts on page 4. Councillors, any questions on the information services report? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a question, page 7, just to really, how's it going with the physical and digital record management? To me, it looks like a bird job. How's it all going?
Yes, it is a massive job, continually to maintain and dispose of when necessary. I don't have too much detail for you on that, unfortunately, but I know that we have a pretty strong team that are constantly working on that with staff, always uncovering things as well.
I bet. Thanks.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Just a question on page 5, Open Space Tree app, and you've got under there the flood mapping as well. Is it for internal? Or is it public?
I believe it's more internal use for mapping trees and inspections on trees, but I'm not 100% sure, so we can get back to you on that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
I'm just a mobile phone fleet renewal, which is fascinating to me. Page 6. Is that the word for multiple mobile phones as a fleet? Like a fleet of cars, a fleet of... Is that what that means? Are you talking about mobile telephones?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mobile phones that staff use, field officers and internal.
And you switch them out every 3 years or 4 years?
We do. 3 years is the time frame. They get, as you know personally, they get old and require replacement. There's newer features. So we do call it a fleet, just like a car fleet.
Yeah.
To keep renewing it.
So how many, what, you're turning over a third every 3 years, or how does that, and they're Apple phones or what?
They are Android phones, and we do that as a whole, apart from any that have been, that have failed over the 3 years. So, yes, that's due coming up.
What do you mean as a whole? Everybody hands their phone in and gets a new one at the same time?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Yep. We work through the teams over a series of weeks.
And that would be on some sort of contract basis, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanya.
Just through the chair, just to add to that, we're just going through a review of the policy around how we allocate phones and mobile plans to rationalise the amount of phones and mobile plans that are given to staff. So that work's being done at the moment internally.
Thank you. Neil McKen, have you got a...
Through the chair, just to confirm, the tree mapping app is not available to the public at this stage?
Thank you. Excellent. No further questions. Thank you both. That's done. We'll swap out. And we've got Renee coming in on property. Hi, Renee. Report starts on page 8. A few photos there as well. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Lovett.
Just with the elderly person's housing, with the big waiting list, we are talking to, like we've got land there, talking to other people there, like Haven Housing, whatever, to look at in the future building more houses, or?
Through the chair, yes, we are.
We are. So how's that progressing, or is it down the line a few years out, or?
It is progressing well, so the discussions are happening at the moment, and I should have an update early next year for you.
That's great.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Hi, Renee. I see on page 12, forestry consultant's been on site in November undertaking a review. Are we not replacing our forestry guy?
We're just working through that at the moment, so we need the information that this consultant is gathering before we make a decision on the future.
Thanks.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. What's here on page 12, the airport annual landing fees, the C33 have registered. What's the potential there, like how many we're expecting that would register? I don't know whether all the Aero Club members should be registering or not.
Through the chair, ultimately that's a decision for each pilot to determine whether that represents good value for the period of time that they use it. I think last year it might have been 34. So I think there's only about one different to previous year.
Thank you. I've just got a question. The medical centres are sometimes on this report. I see they're not. But is there any progress with the Methven Medical Centre with an extra?
I don't yet have an update for you, but I'll
Okay.
find out and come back to you.
So that will come in the next activity report. Thank you. Any other questions for Renee? No, thanks, Renee. And next we have finance, and we have Erin here, reports on page 14. Hi, Erin. Any questions? No. We probably covered it in our audit and risk earlier today, so thanks, Erin. Thanks, Tanya. We have infrastructure and open spaces next. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Hi, Ian. So we have your report on page 15. Councillors, any questions on that report? Councillor Cameron.
I wanted to talk about the sealing of the Domain driveway and car park, which is page 17. Am I allowed to go there, or do you want me to hang up and go back there?
No, that's fine.
We're talking in here, g'day, Ian, about domain driveways and car park remedial sealing. That presumably, is that budget coming out of what, open spaces?
Through the chair, yes it is. It's a capital item which was in last year's budget. The reseal was concluded late last sealing season, and there's been some challenges with some of the adhesion of the seals. I'm told temperature was an issue, so last week, I think it was last week, the week before, ACL were back in and have done some more remedial repairs. Having said that, there's obviously still some more to do.
I recall it being done in the Domain car park, that's what I'm talking about, where it was sealed, and I remember coming in here and saying, that's a lot of money to seal a car park that I didn't actually think needed sealing, but that's a different budget, I was advised, so that doesn't come out of the roading and footpath budget, that comes out of the open spaces budget.
That's correct.
And we talked about sealing and allocating wherever it goes. Do we have a cost of how much was put in for that sealing to do footpaths and the car park? Presumably the ACL are fixing it at no cost.
Through the chair, all of the hard surfacing was in one lump.
Yeah.
So it's the path areas as well as the driveway as well as the car parking area. And off the top of my head, I think it was just on 100,000 was the allocated budget for that.
Can I ask one more question? Yep. Going forward in the next year, what have you budgeted for sealing of the Domain and driveways and hard surface maintenance and stuff?
Through the chair, nothing. We've had our roading staff do a scheduled plan of the assets, and that will then have a forward revolving plan that links in with their sealing cycles.
Okay, and just one more.
I'll just go to Hamish, he's just got his slide on.
Sorry, just to clarify next year's budget. So the starting point is the year 2 of the long-term plan, which council has adopted. We have committed internally to being extremely rigorous in preparing the draft budget based on that year 2 long-term plan, and not adding any extras where at all possible. So the plan for next year will, in very big part and in almost all cases, be reflective of the year 2 of the LTP that you adopted in June.
Thank you.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. ACL applying, doing remedial work, is that free of charge to that's just fixing up it?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay. And may I say, before I put my light off, how wonderful the flower beds and things look on the Domain. They're just
Thank you.
tremendous.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Good day, Ian. My tree outside my house on Nixon Street had a limb come off it, and I did the old snap, send and solve, and once again worked brilliantly the next day. Well, there was an email sort of straight away, and next day it was all sorted, and then a couple of days later the trees come down completely, and there's pink, I assume it's poison or something on top of it. I'm just wondering, what is it being replaced, and do you guys not sort of maybe leave a wee note in the letterbox saying, hey, we're firing a new tree in there in a matter of time, don't step on that pink stuff, it's not good for you, or, we just don't know what's going on.
Through the chair, thank you. I wasn't aware it was the one outside your property that crashed, but the pink will be, the tree's been felled, obviously it's fallen out. That'll be to excavate and take out the root ball. Yes, there will be an intention to replant. It is an avenue up and down the street, in that particular street, so it would be planted with a similar species, but I would like to understand why it's failed as well.
Any thought to maybe a standard dear homeowner, your tree will be replaced, just so we know what's going on?
Yeah, through the chair, that would certainly be an addition to what we currently do. Obviously, you've received the level of service that we currently provide, but I concur something like that in that instance would be beneficial.
Thanks.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Just on Hakateri, the toilet block down there, is there a sort of a time frame when that possibly might be happening in the lower area?
Yes, through the chair, it's scheduled for installation this financial year. The toilet block, the new one, is under construction. We are in tandem going through the resource consent process as well, because we've moved it a significant distance from where the old facilities were located. It will be in the next 6 months, but I haven't got a firm timeline at this point.
Okay, so likely after this summer though?
Correct.
Yep, okay. Just a second question for Hakateri. The bollards that were up the top, you lowered the height of the ones where the garden beds are. Is it normal that you would normally put a reflector on those posts, or the public just, there's a garden bed there and they really should see them? And
Through the chair, it's reasonably obvious that it's on the grass areas, and there is plants around the base as a garden area. So I think there was one at the corners originally had a wee reflective chevron placed upon them, but no, it doesn't need to be an emblazoned strip of highlight.
thank you.
Mayor Brown.
Yeah, on page 18, street tree replacement, Rolleston Street has been put on hold, as most residents want the street to be devoid of trees. So what's the process from there? How long does it stay on hold for, and does someone need to make a decision?
Yes, through the chair, this is the first one that's arisen in this way, where there's been en masse residents saying we don't want anything there. And at this point, the staff do not have any documentation to actually say the council expect this to have an avenue of trees on it, the street. So we don't have, and we traverse some of those questions through our recent workshop. It would be handy to have some directive that actually clarifies where we can and cannot, and should not, or will and won't have street trees.
So does it need to come to council as a report to make a decision on whether it has trees or not? Or
Through the chair,
no clear direction?
Ultimately we do need some level of direction from yourselves to give the staff that clarity. But some of the mechanisms that we did talk about through the tree workshop that could solve the issue that we've got here with this one. So maybe it's leave it on hold until such time as we get through the next stage, and that might give us the answer that we need.
Next question, down 2 bullet points. The Rakaia Reserve, Railway Terrace East, the hedge was removed. Why is the hedge gone?
Through the chair, that came at the request of the local community association. It was very large, and it was creating a lot of untoward activity at night. They were large evergreen trees to the ground, and they had almost home setups inside the trees. So it was at a request of the local Rakaia Community Board or Community Association to look at doing something there that alleviated the problem. So we've taken 3/4 of that line out, and we'll replant that area with just trunked specimen trees next winter.
I thought the whole lot's gone, but there was flaxes, I thought there were there. Flaxes and some old trees, but yeah.
No, they were all conifers, lots of red cedar that cascaded right to the ground. But they'd been hollowed out inside. There was couches in there and all manner of things that you can sit on and create an event in.
Thank you. I've just got a question, page 17 on the Ashburton Dog Park picnic table, and I see you've replaced with other bench seats. So is there more than one bench seat gone in there?
Through the chair, that's correct, and we've got another 3 that had been taken out from another site a number of years ago. We've got them getting refurbished, repowder coated, and they will go into those dog parks as well for additional seating.
Right, thank you. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Page 18, I see we're getting quotes or received quotes for a new Bar Hill playground. Is there an issue with the current one, Ian? Oh, to be heads up, we were there on the weekend for a picnic, the family, and Maddie had a crack on the swings and the old school seesaws and thought it was all pretty good and survived to live to tell the tale.
Through the chair, whilst that was a good experience, the New Zealand standard for playgrounds thinks otherwise, and those pieces of equipment are exceptionally out of date in terms of compliance with safety standards that are expected in a public domain today. So those items are coming out from there, and the new area is going in just to the east of where those are, in the larger field in behind the hall. And we have had consultation on site with the newly constituted board at Bar Hill, and they've agreed with the location and so on.
Can you tell us how big the area is going to be and what's in there?
It'll be 30 metres by 6.5 metres. We marked it out 2 days ago. It'll have 2 seesaws and 1 swing initially. There hopefully is room in the middle once we get that in for another couple of smaller pieces of equipment.
Thanks.
And Bar Hill are very excited about the new playground as well. Councillor Cameron.
Do we talk to Ian about biodiversity?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I see weed control at Lake Camp, Lake Clearwater. Are you talking around the lake, not in the lake?
That is correct.
Okay, around the lake. And what weeds have we got down there? Like what?
Gorse, brome, anything and everything that shouldn't be there.
When did we last do we do that annually down there?
Annually.
Okay, and can I ask another question about weed control at Lake Hood with the lawnmower, the barge? Is that your department or is that coming up?
Neil can possibly give you a steer on that barge at Lake Hood.
Harvester. The weed harvester.
The weed harvester, yeah. How is that is that successful? Is it keeping the weed down? And
Yeah, very much so. It's fully in operation now, and it's just like pretty much mowing the grass now. It's just regular, routine removal of the weed.
Every day, 8 hours a day or 6 hours?
Probably
or
not quite every day. At least twice a week they'd be doing the rounds. Some week maybe every day, but not averaging every day over a few weeks. Yeah.
So it's too early to see the impact on regrowth of the harvester, isn't it? I suppose it's.
Well, we are seeing full growth now, so it's pretty. The growth period is fully in swing now, and it's getting up to the top of the surface, and we certainly are increasing the harvesting.
Thanks.
Councillor Wilson.
Just Lakemoor Creek on page 20. So we're doing a freshwater mussel survey on it. So just can you explain to us, Lakemoor Creek, it's one of our creeks, is it? It's not a ECAN creek.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. It is. It is the council has been under an early 1900 Act given the creek as for its purposes of water race and creek, and apparently this survey is something that has been undertaken in the past, and it's scheduled to be undertaken again.
So would it not be better to perhaps put that under if the the transition process goes into, you know, when it comes to council has been passed, there'll be different avenues when that transition happens. So Legmore Creek must be part of that transition. So it would not be a good time to put it into that process rather than sort of, because our biosecurity diversity officer will be tasked with different roles through that transition process over the next 3 years.
Yes, through the chair, I believe this is funded externally from the council. There is input, obviously, with Christian, but I think prior to that it had just been something that occurred that was a survey of creeks around the district. I expect it's an Environment Canterbury function to do that testing, but most definitely it will form part of the process around water races and through the working group.
Hamish, did you have a comment?
Oh yes, just to really confirm that last comment, the information gathered will be interesting and important and valuable for the consideration of stock water exit. So the timing of the actual survey seems to be completely compatible with that.
Thank you. One final question, Councillor Hooper.
Oh, thank you. The public conveniences, you mentioned the Ashburton Domain picnic ground. When you say that, is that the bit at the end of Elizabeth Street, sort of as you walk towards
Correct.
Rocky Turf?
Greg Street, Elizabeth Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And the conveniences, are they sort of at the other end?
They're at the eastern side of the picnic ground there.
Just past the use by date?
Totally, yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Ian. Lots
Thank
of
you very much.
questions. Appreciate all those answers. We'll move on next to solid waste management. We have Fernando and Chrissy. Reports on page 21. Any questions on solid waste, councillors? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Councillor Hooper and myself actually were appointed for to be observers for the tender evaluation process. So we were involved in 2 steps of that, but since that it's sort of gone back to Teams meetings and we haven't been involved in those. So as observers, we haven't been part of the last part of the process. Just people's information if there's questions later on.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I've just got to go back into where it was. Sorry, I'll just find it. Oh, that's right. The volume of tonnage sent to Cape Valley. Does that mean on page number 23, general waste to Cape Valley tonnage? Is that a record for the district in this year? Is it the volume in October? I'm looking at the graph, the top graph, general waste to Cape Valley tonnage.
Yeah, that's the record for this year.
So would that be, how would that compare to other years, just to understand if we're getting anywhere with waste reduction or just more waste just keeps coming in?
We compared the past 3 years, the total volume per year, we're at par for the past 2 years at 14,500, 14,600. It's at that range.
So it's not going down, this
It's not going down, it's just
but because the district is growing, the per head, or you could say the per person waste should be dropping then if we're growing and not going up. Is that correct?
So for the past 3 years, I've been constantly in the 4,500 tons per year. It's been like that.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. I'm on page 24. The fly tipping, the contractor contaminated recycling bins at the Methven recycling site, and they were invoiced $300 because of it. What happened there, and is there anything that the general public can learn from the issue?
So there, through the chair, there's a construction company in Methven that has his staff spent more than 2 hours just putting general waste into the recycling bin, and because there's a camera in the site, we saw the plate number and we were able to get the face of the person. So we were able to identify the company that did that, and so we sent them the invoice, and they were sorry about it.
Thank you. Mayor Brown.
It charged them $300 for the privilege. Not a lot of money for doing what they did, is it?
That's as much as we can. We just want to recover how much it costs us to actually dispose of the rubbish.
Of the 5 tonnes?
Yep.
I thought it's over $200 to send it to Cape Valley, a tonne.
That's just how much we computed it will cost to take it away to Cape Valley.
Sounds pretty cheap.
Thank you. Any other questions on waste management? Neil.
Yeah, just to give an update with regards to the tender evaluation. The evaluation panel and the probity auditor have been sending through questions to the respective contractors, asking for more information to understand their costings and more detail behind the tenders. And this Friday there'll be a session with the lowest tenderer, just to understand in more detail exactly how all their costings were developed. We need to do this quite thoroughly to be absolutely convinced that when we end up making a recommendation to council that that company is able to fulfil their duties and their obligations with contract sufficiently with the tendered price. So it's dragging a bit longer than what we originally intended, but it's due diligence and quite a thorough process that they're following. And as soon as that's finished this week, next week, we'll be able to give provide an update.
Thank you. Just a question from me. The waste education contract, is that a separate contract?
That's correct. That's when does that finish, Chrissy?
Through the year, it's just got 2 years to go.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on waste management? No, we'll move to stock water. Thanks, Fernando. Page 30. Any questions on that report, Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. Just wondering when the letters were sent out to all the ratepayers.
Today. There's been a delay. Yes, there was a delay getting the data source for it, so they're actually in the post today.
As a matter of interest, Chrissy, how many letters were sent out today? Like 500 or?
915 letters.
Wow.
Good. Any other questions on stock water? No. Thanks, Chrissy. That was easy. We've got Jeremy standing in for Mark. So welcome, Jeremy, and page 32 for the roading report. Roads and footpaths. Questions, Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. Through the chair. Hi, Jeremy. Thank you for the table in the report. How long is the roading footpath season, if you like? Like, I understand it's over summer when the weather is best. Is that correct? Try the
other one. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
For sealed roads, it's generally September to April. Footpaths we can do all year round, but generally sealing, anything that's sealing needs to be done September to April.
Okay. So when I look at your ADC budget and the approved budget and the spend, our spend is on some things is quite below proportional, pro rata sort of requirements. Are you confident that this work can be completed?
Definitely.
Okay.
What, any in particular? Yeah.
No, I'm just looking at it all. Some of them we've barely touched the surface of. Like I saw something was 400,000. It was supposed to be about 2 million. I can't see it now. But I'm just really looking at the table.
Yeah, so we've only just it's only 2 months into the construction season, so we've still got plenty of months left.
Yeah. And I think it has been added. And the additional money is underlined. Is that it down the bottom? The pavement rehabilitation, 2.6. Is that the additional dollars gone in there, Neil?
Neil? Oh.
Is the additional?
No, not you, Neil. The other Neil.
Neil McKeon. Okay.
I'm looking to Jeremy.
We've got the unsubsidised for maintenance middling there.
Yeah, that's what my question is. That's in there already?
Yep.
Metal.
And
Oh, yeah, that's the 500. No, the
it's
registered
not,
lot.
yeah, not currently in the sealed road resurfacing. That's where the rest of the unsub,
So that's not in this table
not,
yet.
not yet,
So
no.
that would take it up to like 14 million pretty much on the ADC budget. And so far we have spent 3 million, is that right? Nearly 4 million.
Correct.
That's correct, okay. And I want to ask one more question about spraying. Shall I wait or can I ask it now, Liz?
Ask it now.
Yeah.
Okay. The spraying last year, we used to spray the gutters and the footpaths in town 2 times a year on the contract. And last year we were going to revisit that and see if we could spray it more often. What has happened with that?
We do way more than 2 times a year. So there's 2, I guess, seasons that you do it, spring and autumn, but they continuously are spraying them. So in this last month, they have gone through Ashburton twice. So it's not, yeah.
Every road twice, essentially.
Well,
like if I
and-
want to get if Middle Road needed weed sprayed, someone will go down there.
They keep spraying until they're gone, essentially.
Thank
So,
you.
As required, yeah.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. The start on page 37, the start date for the variable speed limits is proposed to be 20th of December, which will mean they're in place over Christmas and New Year school holidays. Still on track? Is that going to happen?
Yep, we have the signs in our depot, so we're just waiting for the register to update, then we can put them in.
Good job.
That's good to hear. Mayor Brown.
Page 35, 2.4.5 corridor access data. You've got TMP inspections, unattended sites, redundant sites. There's a table there. What does it actually mean? What are you trying to tell us with that table?
So, yeah, the amount of audits we do monthly that we go around and on every contractor, every piece of work in the network. Unattended sites is sites that have obviously no one's there. Redundant sites is where there's cones and things that shouldn't be there that are left over from work that's finished. Non-conformance is where the inspectors come up on site and it's not compliant. And advisory notices is when they've had multiple non-conformances and it's, I guess, escalated from there.
Yeah, so obviously they're not, there's indiscrepancies there. So that'll all feed into their non-price attributes when they come up for a tender then, if they're not performing here. Would that be correct?
Yep, it's not just roading contracts either,
okay.
it's everything. So anyone that puts a corridor access request through, anyone that's doing work on the roads.
Yep.
So it could be
Any contractor.
Yeah, it could be chorus work, could be water work, could be anything.
Any financial penalties because of this?
Not currently.
It's something
Do you have the
we want to
ability?
consider going forward. We certainly would like to, when we next do our fees and charges, we would like to find some mechanism of charging, so there is a financial consequence for doing this.
So that'll feed through in the annual plan this year?
Yes.
Good. That's great. Question on Beach Road East. I see it's all dug up at the moment in bits and pieces. That's just digging it out and then it gets, is it getting a complete rehabilitation over the top of that?
Correct.
That's right. That's great. It needs it. Just one other thing. The intersection trial that you're doing started back some time ago. When is that likely to be concluded and the results come out?
For the rumble strips?
Yeah, no, it might be Rumble
Yeah,
Street.
that's right, yes.
That's the one, is
It's
it?
coming to the Road Safety Committee meeting next week.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yeah, great. No, that's it. Thanks.
Councillor Wilson.
Just a point of clarification, really. So the extra money, the unsubsidised money which we've put into resealing, that if people look on the resealing map, effectively the forward work program, that's where they'd see that where that money's being spent. Is that correct?
Yep, so that's updated on there. If you hover over the lines, one will say 24-25, the other one says 24-25 unsubsidised.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Good. Any further questions? No? Thanks, Jeremy. We have contracts and tenders, which there are none.
Yeah, with the three waters coming out, it's left a bit of a gap here. So if there's nothing to report, we just won't have those tables here for roading and refuse.
Thanks.
Yeah, there was a tender let street lighting. We haven't received the outcome of that. You did
Was that not the last activity briefing? Oh, all right.
I know you
Follow up on that.
You've changed contractors. I know that.
Yes. Yep.
You haven't informed us.
That's some time ago. Yeah. Okay. I'll follow up.
All I know is you've changed contractors. I don't know when it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And Lakewood, we had that question before from Councillor Cameron. Are there any other questions on Lakewood or the weed harvester? Councillor
I was just
Lovett.
going to ask about the water quality. Have you tested that? You know, is harvesting the weed, taking it out, is the water quality getting better, or where are we sitting with that and the currents and things?
In the actual lake itself, in the canals,
In the canals,
no issues yet. As far as we can see, it's clear. Tanya, is there?
Yeah, just through the chair, ECAN are just starting their summer recreational monitoring now. So they're the ones who do the testing for the public health warnings.
Oh, that's good to know.
Thank you. Any other questions on Lakewood? No, thanks. Thanks, Neil. Next we have compliance and development. Michael and get Ian up here. Michael's report starts on page 39. Anything else to add, Michael? Or all good?
Through the chair, no.
Right. Go straight to questions. Councillor Todd.
Oh, thank you. Well done, Michael. I see building consents processed in 20 days, 100%, 100%, 100%. That's quite good, isn't it, really? Scary. Thank you. Something you can maintain, is it? I certainly hope so.
Any other questions?
Just following on from that, page 41, Michael, you've got the 100% on building amendment. Then you've got a 93. You've had 400s and then 93. What happened?
Through the chair, can I just say human error? If someone forgets to push a button on the system, it doesn't flow through. So any time that a consent or an amendment goes over 20 days, we must do an investigation and write a report so that during our accreditation that happens every 2 years, the auditors can see that, you know, if there's a pattern of things failing to meet the 20 days, what steps we've taken to improve those. So we've tweaked our computer system a little bit to stop that error happening.
So it would have been 100 if they had pushed the button?
Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions for Michael? No, that was easy. Thank you. Jim, you're up next with Civil Defence Emergency Management. Anything else to add? You've got a good report there.
Nothing further, thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. The AFH presentation, I know that there's thousands watch our council meetings, and I'm sure they saw your presentation, Jim, but for those that missed it, is there somewhere on YouTube that you can grab it and share that easily?
Through the chair, so on the Ashburton District Council website, there is all of the risks that we face within the district. There's a synopsis of each of those listed on our website, plus the original video filmed with Dr. Tom Wilson doing that exact presentation that I gave, just a little bit more sciencey, if that's a word, compared to emergency managing like I did. So.
Okay, cheers.
I've just got a question on the exercise Pandora. So, obviously, have you had a debrief on that with the other Canterbury councils?
Yes, we did a thorough debrief on the Friday, kind of a hot wash up, and at the recent EMO forum, there was a fair bit of talk about some good things that we learned, some things that we're doing well, and I've actually prepared a memo to go to the executive team to explain kind of how the day went for us, but it was pretty successful, including a really good media briefing conducted later in the day.
Thank you. I think I might have been part of that. Councillor Kim, oh, you've turned your light off. So how many staff from this building were involved in that exercise?
We had 42 of our staff involved, plus around about 10 to 12 from emergency services throughout the day, and another 10 or 15 visitors that came in just to observe from a number of our welfare agencies, and that just have a look at what we do. So yeah, a really successful day across the board. I was really pleased with the level we achieved, and I was actually an evaluator for the day, so my evaluation report went forward to NEMA for them to have a look at where our train state's at, which is pretty good.
Good, thank you. New Brown.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. The Ashburton District Recovery Team, what makes up that team? Who is it?
Through the chair, so at this stage we have our recovery managers. So we've got 4 appointed recovery managers. We've also got representatives from health, FENS, and the emergency services. Someone from the insurance council. We're working with getting someone from the Principals Association involved. We're kind of trialling things. It hasn't been done anywhere else in Canterbury, so we're the first to have a crack at it, and it seems to be working quite successfully.
Any other questions for Jim? No, thanks, Jim. Rick's not here, so Ian will answer any questions first on alcohol licensing, bylaw monitoring and enforcement, page 47. Any questions on that? No. Sorry.
I was interested in the new applications. I thought we had enough clubs or whatever in Ashburton, so that's over and above the renewals and special licences, etc. I think there was 8 or 9 of them. So what sort of clubs get a licence for they're new, aren't they?
Look, I'm sorry, Councillor, I'm not able to answer that question specifically.
Yeah. Okay.
At this point.
Okay, or maybe we'll get something to ask at the next activity briefing, maybe, or we can get an update. Any questions on animal control? Oh, Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. It looks like October is not a good month to be a wandering dog in Ashburton. 8 euthanisations there compared to 1 for the rest of the year. Why the high number?
Through the chair, I think it's just things just ebb and flow. It's difficult to quantify, how things work in these spaces. So, I'm sorry, I can't give you any clarification as to why that's exceptional.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, we'll move on to food safety. And there's a wee note under there, the increase in mobile shops inspected in August and September accounted for the night noodle market and Boulevard Day. So that's that. Any other questions? No. All good. Thanks. For that, next we have planning, and welcome Brad up. First activity briefings for Brad. How are you? So reports on page 50. Any questions from councillors, or do you have anything to add, Brad?
Through the chair, no, nothing to add.
Nothing. Oh, do you want to introduce Brad? Yeah, that might be a good idea.
My apologies. Yes, Brad Thompson. He's been with us for how long now? Is it?
Fifth week.
Fifth week, gosh, time flies. Brad comes to us from MFE. I think there was an introduction to new staff and brief, but Brad comes from MFE, and he's previously worked at Environment Canterbury and also for Mahanari Koratau as a consents assessor. So I think he's settling in very well to the role. He's certainly got some fresh ideas and some good ways to move the district forward. So that'd be quite useful.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Lovett.
Yeah, question I had the other day was a bit like Rakai's one about refreshing their town plan where they're heading to, but as I said, a meeting in Tynwald, and with all the shops, they've that line there for sale, and there's a lot of new subdivisions going on in Tynwald. I was asked, does Tynwald have a future plan for major roading or where all the subdivisions are going? Because they kind of felt they didn't want to see a subdivision on a subdivision with all these narrow, windy roads, and when you start parking on the sides of them, you need an ambulance or a fire brigade down, there's no room, and it's just a general question. Has Tynwald got a future plan, or are we thinking of doing one to have some orderly fashion over there?
I'm not aware of a future plan at all, but it is something that we would be considering.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, through the chair, just to add to that, I think there's two parts to the question. Firstly, yes, as we're looking at new planning and new zoning, one of the things we are looking at is little shopping precincts and things like that, and where they might go in the same way that the open spaces team look at new recreation reserves and strategic places in that space. Tynwald is, it's rather singular in terms of its commercial activities at the moment, so certainly there are opportunities as the town expands to look at where there might be need. The second point about road widths and things like that, and I guess that's to do with when subdivisions are developed, and to some degree master planning. If we get plan changes where we look at how big the roads are, how wide they are, how much room there is for parking, and also for lay-bys and other things as well. So that's definitely something we look at a local scale at the time.
Now, originally the towns, it was all drawn out in a real stately manner. So those days are gone. We just keep adding, and there's never going to be a strategic plan for the likes of Tynwald or Rakai. They just grow as we...
Through the chair, yeah, we were very well served when the local plans were done in 2005, and that was the basis for the district plan. What we're seeing is that there is still land available, and so there's still a basis of development. So we're not having ad hoc development as we might see in sort of some of our other neighbours, but there is certainly, you raise a good point, as we go forward, doing so in a structured fashion is very important.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. A couple of things around planning at long-term plan time. There was talk around some land swap in Rakaya for changing playground land into residential and swapping some residential to open space. Did we ask for a report on that? Did we get that far, or is something happening? I thought we did, but so I'll come back to that in a second. And God, now I've lost my train of thought. So with planning also, when do we start having a discussion around our next district plan? Because we've had urban sprawl in the last 10, 12 years, because it started, even though we instigated it, it started being written 12 years ago, and things have changed in that time, and it'll be another year or two before it comes into force. And I see there's another private plan change here again because, towns, boundaries pushing out. So when are we going to look at our district plan and start that overall thinking?
So through the chair, that is a very good question. Initially, we were looking at doing a district plan review starting off this year. Then we had the last government changing the system, in which case it was all going to regionalised planning-based systems and spatial planning. So at that point, it didn't seem sensible to embark on a full-scale plan review. Then, of course, we had the change of government and the uncertainty around that, and now more recently we've had the signals of it's kind of, I guess you call it similar type arrangement, but certainly a lot of change. We are doing work on land supply and availability, so we've got that project in place at the moment, and that's due to be, I think we'll probably have something to report early next year on that. Equally, we will also know a little bit more about the government's ambitions next year and a little bit more clarity on how that runs forward. But the other thing we're also looking at doing at the moment is scoping out the things to make sure that the district plan is still fit for purpose. What we're sort of seeing at the moment is we don't think that land supply is our number one problem. The second issue is one around just making sure that the other parts of the district plan are making sense and are still fit for purpose. And especially when we consider also some of the other things that are coming in, like the granny flats that people are calling and all those sort of things, and making sure we're aligned with that, if that answers the question.
Thank you. Mayor Brown?
Yeah, I'm just following on from Russell's comment about the LTP and the submission we had for looking at swapping some land in Rakaia. Perhaps it's the policy, Tony's team, that they should have the answer sitting in there, what we decided to do. They could follow up at a later date, even if not now.
Thank you. Yes, we'll follow that up.
Yeah, Tanya?
Yeah, through the chair. I think that was more directed at property as well, and the work that property was doing. So they're already doing a bit of work in Rakaia around land status of properties, and a lot of that work is in relation to the Memorial Hall and the work that needs to be done. You'll recall there was a workshop some time ago, so there is work going on in that space, but I'll follow that up.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions? No? Thanks, Brad. Next we have economic development, and we have Simon's report on page 51. Quite a bit happening there. Anything else to add, Simon?
No, nothing.
Any questions? Mayor Brown?
Yeah, just the recent community events involving council, the Jackson Homes and Ruddericai, which was cancelled, but Mid-Canterbury Primary Schools Athletics. What involvement does council actually have in those, because they're run by others? What's our involvement?
Through the chair, they're running council land, so they're run through our events sign-off process. So we have no involvement in terms of the delivery of them, but making sure that they're safe events that run in the community, so they go through our sign-off process.
So who does that? Because we reported earlier in the day on exactly this by another department.
It was the health and safety part of...
Well, that's what this is, isn't it?
So there's an event process that Sarah Colcord takes responsibility for. So when an application's made, goes through to Sarah. Sarah disseminates it to the council departments that are relevant to that particular application. So there may be liquor licensing requirements, there may be a road closure, there may be, there is always health and safety requirements. So Sarah distributes that and then pulls it back together, and then assuming we're satisfied with what is in that particular group's application, it then gets signed off with an event permit.
Thanks.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. The jazz, g'day Simon. The jazz in the park, that sounds cool. What was there's a scheduling clash with the large charity fundraiser. What was the large charity fundraiser?
Was that last weekend with the hospice?
Yeah.
It was a hospice, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say I'd have to get back to you, but yeah, that rings a bell.
So it was the jazz in the park. Was that a daytime sort of planned event or evening or?
Yeah, through the chair, sort of late afternoon, early evening. So we substituted the 160th to cover movie night. Jazz in the Park will be delivered late February, early March. We're just working through the sort of organising bits of that, and that will be an afternoon, early evening event for the community to come to. Kind of really cool jazz music going on. We're envisaging picnic blankets and surrounding the stage, and people coming and bringing the kids and having a picnic and having a great time.
Sounds good.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think that those events are wonderful, and they're what the community can see as well. So they really enjoyed in that movie, even though Saturday wasn't a great weather night, there was still a good turnout, weather-wise, still a good turnout to the movie. So that was good. I'm so excited to see the pedestrian count. And I think that data is really clean and easy to read and looks really good. And my next question now, which might be outside the scope of your role, I don't know, but when we look at, we've had, is it a month, pedestrians down Main Street, 70,000 people, and I understand people can be counted multiple times. Can we compare that with other townships of a similar size? Because now we have to bring meaning to these figures. I mean, we can do comparisons, which is important, but we want to see relevance and see if we can somehow measure the vibrancy of our town, and how do we do that?
Through the chair, we don't have a comparative figure at the moment,
No.
but there are a number of councils using the same system, so I can go back and talk to the system owners and see if that's practical and whether other places share their data.
Yeah, and whether it's relevant, might be just nonsense.
I think we were sort of clear right at the start that the first few months of data would be interesting, but it gets more and more useful the longer the time series goes on, and particularly when we get into next year and we can start to see trends year on year and things like
wonderful. And I've tried to tease out, like, make the screen larger so I can see the time when most people are in the town. Have you had a look at that in more detail? Those with the green graph, if you spread it out a bit, if you put your screen up to about 800%, you can see the times, and it looks to be, if you just look roughly at it, around middle of the day, early afternoon, looks to be busiest.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's particular bits of that data you're interested in, I can, or even the longer you zoom out the data series, the harder it is to read, obviously.
That's right. But I think, and that would be quite good, I think, also to share with the retailers at the next, if you have another retailer meeting, that would be quite, I think they'd be interested in this information as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And through the chair, you can also, it also transposes the temperature and whether there's a rain. So, and there is some quite interesting correlation. You can see where it's been raining and then it's stopped. Yeah. And then suddenly there's a burst of people into the CBD. So it's quite cool.
What that means in terms of planning and that, we've still got to think about it a wee bit, but that's interesting, isn't it, to see? Yeah. Thank you. I think that's tremendous. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Obviously, the Mayor's Task Force of Jobs is a successful opportunity or promotion here. Once in a job, how long do people stay under the umbrella of this this system? Like, if once they get a full-time job, are they then taken out, or do we still care for them, or what's the ongoing involvement?
Yeah, through the chair. You'll see that at the start of the Mayor's Task Force section, there's been 24 placements, 12 of which are sustainable. So that means that they've gone on for 90 days. So we provide pre-placement support and placement support for that, generally young person. And then once they're placed into employment, we continue to provide post-placement support for both the young person and the employer for up to those 90 days. In some cases, it can be slightly longer, depending on need. So it's, if we've got somebody who's still looking a bit wobbly, we'll potentially continue that support for a little while longer. Generally speaking, yeah.
Mayor Brown.
Just upcoming events. Simon, there's a circus coming. When is it coming, and will it be on the domain? I'm not sure of the date through the chair, but I can come back to you with that. And yes, it's on the domain. Thanks.
Councillor Wilson.
The Ashburn District Cycle Trail. How have you gathered the information? Because it could be, we don't want to do a report that's unfeasible as it was, because it's easy for someone to draw a line around Mid-Canterbury and go, let's all just go there. How have you, I see you've talked to the Mid-Canterbury Tourism Advisory Group. How have you gathered the basis of what you're asking this experienced company to report on?
Through the chair, it's been a mixture of my background research, advice from other members of staff in the organisation, advice from the Mid-Canterbury Tourism Advisory Board, and just in talking to other areas that have done this kind of work before. So, and some of them have been good enough to share their terms of reference. So we've sort of borrowed, begged, and stolen, expert advice. We've put together a terms of reference that will go out as part of, a scope of what we're looking for from those consultants. And it won't just be a case of drawing a line, we're actually really interested to see whether we can tie into existing routes and utilise existing tracks. And in particular, the landowner consent is going to be a huge part of what that consultant needs to establish. So.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chris. Sort of closer. My question was going to be: you've got a request for a quotation, but what is that? What are they quoting on? You know, is it like an hourly rate that we'll do the job for, or are you saying we want you to supply costings on a cycle trail from A to B, or what have you actually asked for in your request?
Yeah, so through the chair, it's a variety. So we've asked for advice on the route. We've asked for advice on where there may be problems with land permission. We've looked at we've asked them to look at the economic opportunities around the route, so where pop-up cafes and things could start to grow, where there's existing economic units that could be part of the circuit. We've asked them to develop some high-level costings. So we won't be down to the nitty-gritty, but in broad terms, how much will it cost to put a bridge across here? And so we're wanting to come back to you with some high-level view of what this thing might
So
cost.
that small amount of money we allowed for cycle trail, that budget will cover this, and that's pretty much what that will achieve.
That's right.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's the 25 grand feasibility study covers that. Yep.
Yep.
The Taiwanese YouTuber, I had a look at that video, and I see it was coordinated by Experience Canterbury. So when you say coordinated, Simon, is that do we pay her anything, or do we, like, she had a bash on the jet boat, and she was sort of on a farm, and then she went out for dinner, but there was that was kind of it. It was quite long, but I kind of wanted more. I wanted her to be doing the Dirt Bandits and riding a horse and beautiful scenery and checking out some fishing and stuff like that. So when you say coordinated, what exactly does that mean?
So through the chair, Shelley will work with the operators. So the influencers coming generally have a view as to the type of story they're wanting to tell, and Shelley will work with them to help refine that story. She will then work with the operators around the districts, be they accommodation, hospitality, or activity-related providers, and she'll put together a kind of an agenda for that person to go around and be booked in with the providers that are being covered. In terms of the payments, that varies. So sometimes the provider will make their option available. Sometimes we will pay all or some of that. So it just depends on a case by case basis.
I know some of the influencers, we tap into their photos, and some of them are awesome and it's great value for money, but yeah, do you know if we paid anything for this particular one?
Through the chair, I don't, but I can come back to you on that.
Thanks, mate.
I watched the video as well. I think it looked like they went to the hot pools, but they didn't. There were no photos of them or video of them, and but yeah, they obviously seemed very excited to be here. So that was good. Yeah, and it's all good promotion, isn't it? Yeah. Any other questions for Simon? No, thanks, Simon. Thanks, Ian. Next up is people and facilities. We've got Sarah coming up, and Amanda's first. And the report is on page 64. Hi, Amanda. Anything to add? I see you're placed in the top 10 of all councils. Have you had an update on the placing for that yet?
Through the chair,
Not yet. We, in the next few months, will purchase the report and we'll find out what number we got in the top 10, but I'm very happy to be back in there.
Thank you. Any other questions for Amanda?
And I'll just let you know that the survey was done probably in between September and October, so during our very busy period of rates and rebates and staff movement, so extremely happy to have that good result.
Well done. It's great. Looking at you all for questions. Councillor Ellis, good on
Thank you. Just last time I did Talk It Up Tuesday, and some people came wandering in through the front door, and a couple of them were like looking for meeting rooms and didn't know, and they sort of stand in the middle, if you like, and look very lost and wander around trying to think, who do I go to find out where I'm going, and next thing they're on their phone trying to find something. Is there almost a, it's Monday, but like a concierge role, almost at peak times, if you like, if we know when it's busiest through the door, that could direct people, or because some of them, they do come in looking quite confused and quite lost as to where they should be going, and that was just in a small 1 hour time frame that I was there. But
Sarah?
Through the chair, nothing money can't fix, Mr. Councillor Ellis. In terms of lost in Te Whare Whakatere, look, it is a big building and meeting rooms are scattered. The main sign, once you're in there, refers to the meeting room map, which is around the corner, and it's got the visual to help with the meeting room allocation. Clearly, with customer services being where they are, if somebody walked up to the counter, it possibly could have been a situation where no one was at the counter because they were on the phones and there's no need. If there's no need for customer services staff, they're generally in the back office doing administration and phone calls. So it's just that balance of if they walked up, somebody would come and help them. And if they're looking lost in the middle, they might not see them to come out to offer the help. So it's definitely something that we can consider further, especially if there are peak times. I don't believe our current door counter system kind of has numbers in terms of breaking down like our previous one. So that's just something that we need to consider also.
Thank you. Councillor
And through the chair, if I can just add, sometimes those meetings aren't run by a council staff member. They can be a private party, so they can be looking on their phone to find the meeting. We might not even know the name of the meeting or the organisations that's running sessions. So it also depends on how well the communication's gone out from the person organising the meeting to let them know which room, what name. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Amanda. When I look at the graph on the rates rebate, last year, 2024, seemed to have less people claiming rates than 2023. Have I got that right? More people claimed rates rebates in 2023 than they did in 23-24?
Other way around.
Correct.
Yeah. That seemed at odds with what we hear with regards to economic indicators around the country. This year we seem to be tracking versus the 2023. Is that too early to get a feel for rates rebate and applications this year, or?
Through the chair, Sarah and I actually had a conversation about this, and yes, we had a lot more people come in earlier to get a rates rebate, but we've now sort of petered out and we're on target with the previous months on the previous years. So it'll be interesting to see what does happen, say, in the next couple of months going forward. Are we going to see more this year than in the previous years?
Yeah, because the rebate the threshold for claiming a rebate has dropped, hasn't it? So there's easier to get a rebate. Is that correct?
The rebate has probably widened from what you earn to what you can receive. The amount of rates you pay to the amount of income that you have coming into the household.
Yeah, I thought there was a ceiling like 25,000 or whatever it was. No,
it is dependent on the amount of rates you pay as to what that ceiling is.
So it hasn't necessarily got easier for people to get a rebate.
It did move in the last couple of years to become a little bit more accessible to a lot more people when the interest rates went up.
Sure.
Thank you. That looks like all the questions. Thanks, Amanda. Next up we have Jill and Ashburton Library reports on page 66, and lots of good graphs there too. Questions for Jill? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. I love the recycler device concept, and I'm just wondering, with 43 people on the wait list and we only gave out 3 laptops in October, are we advertising, Jill, for used laptops or no longer wanted laptops in any way? And do we work in with the solid waste people if they get something left down at the landfill that we could tap into?
There's been a few changes with RAD. We're now going to be offering it in-house. And the good news is that RAD, other schools in the country have come to our rescue and given us some fixed computers that we're now checking over to make sure that they're satisfactory to hand out. So there's been a bit of a rescue package, and so our waiting list will be down a bit. We get them basically from RAD. They source them.
Okay.
But if we can incorporate the recycling centre, we will.
Thank you.
So does that mean that people can drop their old laptops in at the library to be recycled?
Through the chair? No. If they continue to send them down to the recycling centre, and if we can make use of them or we need them, then we will approach them.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
I was just going to say, for simplicity and learning the process, there's certain types of laptops that we use more than others, and models and things like that. So, we will select the ones that we need and know how to upgrade.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask about the driving simulators. Is it in the right place in the library? There's no signage there, and we were down around that area in the school holidays, and just talking to a grandfather who had two grandsons there, and they were going for their driver's license, and we kind of, two of us there talking to them, saying, do you realise there's a simulator sitting right here? And they had no idea that it was sitting there, and I'm wondering, there's no signpost there or anything, or does it have to be sitting right there, or could it be better positioned that the kids could get on it?
Through the chair, there's only a certain number of places, and I think it's 2 or 3 in that whole downstairs area where there is a data cord and a power cord together, and that has limited where we can put that. The other thing is it's quite good having it there for security, because we don't really want kids as kids, not kids that are learning, going through their license process, but just kids that want to play, to be hopping on and off it, because that has happened before and it creates damage. If we can get a bit of a sign through, I guess we could put it on the seat just to say what it's for, but we've been told to limit our tendency to put signs on everything. So
I think promotion and advertising of it being a feature is probably number one, and then we know, people know that it's available to be used, and then we can look to having something, as Jill alluded to, on the seat itself. There's lots of features in the library, and some of them are sort of that self-discovery component, and some, have signage, and we've just got to have that fine balance.
Yeah, it was just a comment no one knew what it was. It was sitting there with nothing there. And I thought, well, just ask whether something could just be put there and ask staff. Because it needs to be used. It costs money and just sitting there. Yeah.
And it came through from the road safety committee. But Hamish, do you have a comment?
Yes, I think the general point that it needs to be better known is valid, and we'll look at that. I'm not sure signage once you get here is the right thing to do, but linking with driving trainers, linking through its purpose, which is through the road safety committee, and having knowledge of it being in existence so that it can be used when people get here, or perhaps even specifically coming here to use it, would be I think the way to approach it, rather than just having sort of random signs up for people who, because then, as Jill says, we'll just be forever asking them not to play on it. So we can do better in terms of knowledge, which is your point. Just how we do that, just give a little bit of thought to that.
And there are two others in the district. So there's one at Ashburton College and one at Mount Hutt College. And we do get the data of how much they're used through our road safety meetings as well. Councillor Cameron.
Just a quick question. The recycling a device, and this probably isn't a question for you, Jill. I'll ask Sarah. What do the council do with their old computers and things?
They do definitely get recycled. They get repurposed as well where it's suitable. Clearly the information is all removed and retracted and things like that. We've moved from, as you're aware, having PCs on desks and laptops to surfaces. My understanding of, clearly you've got a smaller device, actually upgrading and doing the work that the RAD people do is significantly harder / almost impossible to do to a device of this size. So those are the sort of things, and that's why I said earlier that all devices aren't the same, and RAD choose the ones that they can do.
So they like the traditional laptop type of things?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So once these are expired or finished with, we clean them up, give them to somebody else, or send them back to whoever's provided them, or
Yes, yeah, or they can be sold.
They can be sold. We don't just send them out to the
No, definitely not. They have a second home that suits their purpose.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. The activities and programs, Jill, a great initiative. I'd see about 45 or 45 different types of activities. So are you reaching sort of capacity as what you can do there, or do you have any other new exciting things that you're going to be adding to the list that you are doing? Like, obviously you say things change and some things drop off the radar maybe if they don't get the same, interest, but it's a great program.
There's always new ideas coming on. What we like best, because it doesn't involve so much staff component, is when a community group wants to start a program that they are willing to run themselves and man themselves. And this is starting to happen more and more, and it increases our capacity without increasing our staff need.
Okay, no further questions for Jill. Thanks, Jill. Great to see so many people using the library. Next we have Richard, EA Network Centre, and report is on page 72. Anything to add?
Through the chair, no, nothing to add. A very busy and exciting reporting period, and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I see there you had a new daily visitation record of 7,081 people, so that's fantastic.
Through the chair, I believe that's the first time we've broken 7,000 in a day. So
that's brilliant. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. The pool shut down in January, mate. So does that, probably answer this several times, does that incorporate the steam room in the spa, and will the new facility-wide members be compensated?
through the chair, it includes a range of maintenance and some improvements to the area. The steam room is one of them. Fixing some parts of the spa is one of them as well. And we're just working through with our members exactly what that looks like. But obviously where those people are impacted on what they're paying, we will do some adjustment to that to make sure that it balances out.
So you'll just, for the period where the pool's shut, you'll just say, look, steam room, spa, all shut. Yeah. Thanks.
Correct. The whole aquatic area is shut during that time.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. The pool visitation, thanks Richard, and this is a nice looking graph, it goes up to about 320,000 people a year. How do you count that? Is they walk through the door, is they pay their fee to do swimming, or how do you actually count that?
Through the chair, all of our visitation statistics are done using people counters. So there's in the ceiling around the building, there's lots of people counters that count in both directions so that they don't override one another as well. There's a lot of smart there.
So that is 350 is obviously not unique visits because some people go every couple of days for a swim, don't they?
Correct, and it is as smart as it is. If somebody goes out and goes back in, it will count them again within the same period as well.
Okay, so this will include people that have bought the facility wide or the wet contract.
Correct, all visitors to the pool.
People that walk through the door. So if I walk through the door to have a log, I'm counted?
That is correct.
And I might not have my swimming costume on.
Correct.
Thank you.
I've just got a question on the Waterworld water parks, that inflatable course that some of us had to go on. Are you thinking that, I mean, that was good numbers, over 1,000 people coming through for that weekend. Are you thinking that you could do that sort of again in the holidays, or?
Through the chair, we are in talks with Waterworld again to have them back at a suitable time throughout the year. We'll always line up the holidays. Exactly which holiday break we haven't quite confirmed yet, but they were definitely keen to come back and thought it was a very successful event and enjoyed having some councillors along to enjoy it as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for Richard? No, all good. Thanks, Richard. Next we have Art Gallery and Museum, and we've got Shireen here, and her report's on page 79. Good afternoon, Shireen.
Kia ora koutou.
Anything else to add?
No, that's it.
Questions, councillors? Doesn't look like it. No. I think it's all obviously in the report. Sarah, you've got something to add?
Not a question. I was just going to share one a bit of information, and Shireen and her team have been part of it. So hence how it relates to this topic. We're doing a summer What's On guide in terms of all of our activities happening over the Christmas and summer period. So that's including EA, the library and the Art Gallery Museum, and also some other locations, aka the jumping platform, the paddling pool, and just other things as well. So that includes, majority of them are free locations and free events or free activities. There are some that have charges at EA, for example, but promotion is going to be great, and it's in one booklet, and so we're hoping that goes out. I'm going to say, looking at Janice, sort of early December, and they'll be available in terms of copies at all the facilities, so families can take them home and then just pick up and choose and look and see what's happening around the place. So lots of effort, and comms have done a fantastic job pulling it together. So looking forward to that too.
That sounds really good. I was just going to ask a question. Obviously, it's end of the school year, so visits, you've just had a couple, but when do you start planning for the year for the school visits? Do you sort of reach out to all the schools and offer them a program or times to visit?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We do actually keep in touch with the schools on a regular basis. There's a special newsletter that's created for them every quarter, so every term. So we're working on next year's educational program right now, and it will be mailed out probably early January to the schools. We actually had several bus loads of students in today, so it was quite lovely, and we do see sometimes a bit of a lift in the term 4, where teachers are looking for other experiences outside of the classroom. So yeah, I think they were having a great time today.
I also heard that some of the schools who bus in for the swimming lessons in the morning then sort of add on an activity, and I saw our Lodia, the snow school, in the library yesterday, and I think were they one of the groups at the art gallery
I
today?
believe they were, yes. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a great way of combining all our...
It is, and yeah, the only challenge that we have as facility, I guess, owners and promoters is the costs associated with buses for schools. That's becoming a bigger and bigger part of their decision, whether they take all their kids or some of their kids to swimming lessons, all their classes or only some of their classes or none of their classes to the Art Gallery Museum. Bus costs are significant, and that is factoring into their decision. So it's disappointing because we've got the willingness and the ability to share and provide different educational opportunities outside of the classroom, but cost does filter into their decision making.
Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
Just asking, do you have groups operating? I know a few people that used to do a lot of drawing or art, and their brushes are in the cupboards and they haven't picked up their work for a few years. And I was just talking to one the other day. I thought, I'll just ask you today. Do you encourage them to get back into it? These people. Because I don't know where to sort of start off and where to get your paints, and I'm just wondering, is it an avenue you could go down and get these guys to pick it back up and get going again?
Through the chair, I guess we play a role in that. We are part of the arts and heritage ecosystem in the community, but specifically our role as a public art gallery and museum isn't to facilitate those kind of conversations, I guess, but we do give advice to local artists. Where that probably sits, that responsibility sits, is with the Arts Society, which are a membership program for working artists, and they have so much knowledge and experience in terms of buying paints and paintbrushes and things together, and they run regular workshops where artists can gather and do life drawing and learn watercolours and things like that. We do the occasional workshop experience, and it really does depend on the exhibitions that we have on and the artists that we are working with. But in terms of encouragement, definitely, but in enabling, the purchasing of paints and paper and materials, we're probably not the right space.
Thank you. That's all the questions. Thank you, Shireen. Thanks, Sarah. So next we democracy and engagement. We've got Janice up first for communications, and Tony, page 84. Questions? Me, Brown.
A couple of questions, Janice. This building, when it was built, had a time-lapse video done, and that I think was going to be condensed and made available. Has that happened? And where would we find it if it has?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, we have gone through the time-lapse footage and created a video. We can provide that link to you.
Yeah, yep. And for others as well. Yep.
Absolutely.
And the other question I have is, when we, like we're recording live now, and you go to watch it later, you can sit and watch for 6 or 7 minutes of nothing at the start. Can you edit those 6 or 7 minutes off it and start when we start? Have you ever watched it later and see that 6 or 7 minutes of nothing?
Thank you. Through the chair, Your point is noted, and I'll discuss with the team how we can work around that.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I think the question's been asked before. We have the big screen out there, and I think it might have been Councillor Hooper asked if some of the promotional videos and that we've got could be played on some of these screens, and I just wondered, is that happening?
Thank you. Through the chair, yes. We have done some work in that space, and we've acquired a couple of extra bits of hardware that enable that to happen. And what that's done is created, I guess, another technical problem for us to solve, to be able to have it running all the time. So we are looking at quotes at the moment for what that might cost, because at the moment, for us to be able to play stuff all the time now requires a staff member to go and manually unplug and plug things in. And it's a little bit tricky to actually manage. So we're just trying to work out a way to automate it.
I just have a quick question on the social media. So 11 council Facebook pages. How come there's so many?
Through the chair, thank you. So that includes the likes of like the Methven Community Board page. There's actually a Mount Hutt Memorial Hall page. There's, you know, and then there's the more well-known EA Network Centre pages, etc. Yeah, there's quite a few on the list.
Any other questions for Janice? No, it's nearly 5 o'clock, isn't it? We're all getting a bit quiet. Thanks, Janice. Next we have strategy and policy, and we've got Mark here and his reports on page 86. Anything else to add, Mark?
No, nothing further to add from me at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Just a question, Mark, and it's something you can probably answer really easily. When you look at submitting or not on government policies or centrally sort of like e.g. local electoral reform issues paper, and you're considering it, how do you choose which ones to submit on and which ones not to submit on? And do we get a say in that? Like,
I guess it's a bit of a mix between what our current resourcing is and the nature of the issues being raised as to whether we think council would be interested in making a submission. So it can be a bit of a judgment call. Obviously, you know, potentially we could put them all through to you and you could tick a box as to whether you want us to submit, but there is quite a bit of work involved in some of these submissions, particularly in sort of understanding.
I'm not coming from a point of criticism. I'm just I'm just interested. Like there's some we're not submitting statutes amendment bill, which sounds pretty dry, but we're not submitting on that. So that was decided. You felt the same, that it was minor things. We're not going to bother with that. Is that
correct?
As simple as that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mayor Brown.
Just on the section 17A reviews, just wondering what, if everyone knows what they are, I'm sure they don't, but if they do, but if they don't, they could tell them. But what's council's role in those 17A reviews, apart from adopting the report? Or is there one?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, essentially we're bringing those reports to you to consider in terms of how each of those services might be delivered in the future. So the opportunity for a service delivery review is to look at how it's currently delivered and whether or not you consider that it should be delivered in a different way in the future or the current approach is appropriate. So your role is, I guess, to consider the information that we're providing to you and make a decision based on that.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
On page number of the Methven Community Strategic Plan, I see tomorrow you've got a community workshop plan. How's the engagement going with that plan?
Good, yep. So as you know, the board is leading that process. At this stage, I think we had 24 responses this morning, about a week or two in. We've got, I think, 15 for the workshop at this stage tomorrow and 9 for the workshop on Sunday, and that's just the people who have registered, so we are expecting some people just to turn up.
And an email went out to sort of all the stakeholders to invite them to register for the workshop. But we've also got some very flash, lovely signs up around town with details of the workshops and of the plan. And we had a mail drop last week, I think, with the Snowfed newspaper. We got the survey as well. So
Yeah, that's right.
It's been really the support's been fantastic from the team, and feels like lots of people are going to engage. Just workshop should be good next week, tomorrow night. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Marco, I asked a question of Renee earlier about forestry, and I'm guessing the consultant, the time it's taking for them to have their report in, are they actually physically driving to some of our sites and having a good look on the ground? Is that why the time?
Renee's probably the best person to answer that, but I understand that that's part of it. Tanya might feed into that.
Through the chair, I'm probably better to answer that. So yes, he spent a week driving around the district, looking at different forests. His focus at the moment is on the work we need to do to inform annual plan budgets for 25-26. In particular, it's not just expenses, but also the income, what we should be prioritising in terms of harvest. So that's the focus of the work he's doing at the moment. And the next stage is the strategy, the more high level documents, but we're just focusing on the annual plan for now.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
The water service delivery plan, I see it's got an estimated completion date September 2025. So when does that have to be done by? Because that's the main body of the future of water, effectively.
So that's the statutory deadline is September next year. Yeah.
I just have a question on the local electoral reform issues paper. It says you're considering. When will you sort of make your mind up? Because I know some of the councillors in the mayor were down at the Zone 5 and 6 meeting where Nick Smith presented this, and it was sort of touched on at another meeting last week. But
so that we think that's something we should submit on. That's the first step in the process. So it's just an issues paper that will feed into a consultation document, I think, after that, which will be early next year. So we're just trying to find some time to have a conversation with you about it.
But I guess that would be done before Christmas if
it would need to be, which is part of our issue. So I think it's about a mid-January response. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Brown.
The Principles of Treaty of Waitangi Bill, is that the David Seymour bill, is it? That's the one?
That's correct, yep.
And we're not submitting?
We think it's, I guess, more of a Wellington discussion, a level discussion. And that our contribution will be unlikely to affect change. I guess there's also a risk around it in us submitting, and that we have existing relationships that we want to maintain. So we think it's best not to.
Even not for or against, you wouldn't go either way.
Sorry, so that
you would submit either for or against the bill. Like you don't have to submit in favour; you can submit it against.
Well, you could, exactly. So, I mean, that's ultimately your call.
Yeah, Hamish?
Yeah, I think Mark's right. It's ultimately the council's call. It just wasn't a submission we felt we were going to have a huge amount of impact on, and many others will be expressing all the views I'm sure that we could ever formulate. And given the wide range of views, it may well have been something that should involve some consultation if we were to make a submission, so we could accurately reflect all the views that this community might hold. And we simply don't have the time and capacity to do it to that extent. So on balance, we felt we wouldn't make a submission, but of course if council felt that we should, then we will change our mind or change our position.
When is that? That's got 6 months, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's the end of January, rings a bell.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any further questions? No. Thanks, Mark. Got Anne up next with memorial halls and reserve boards. And that's on page 96. Lots going on there. Any questions? I've got a question. So the Tynwald Memorial Hall, you've had a big clean up there. So was that was just the hall committee that came in to help with the clean up, or was that all the user groups who came in for that? Can you answer that, Carolyn? You were there.
I was. It was. We did it over 2 nights. Primarily, the young people that train with the karate dojo. A couple of those turned up, and there was mainly 3 members of the committee, 4 members of the committee. So it's quite a small group. Worked for. Some people were there for like 6 hours, but it was a very generous donation from the people that did the clean. They cleaned it up because we had a fundraiser, and then they donated the proceeds of the fundraiser to the hall for repairs and maintenance and things. Very generously, in my view.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions on halls, reserve boards?
Yes.
Yep. Councillor Brown.
I can talk about it. We had a good meeting. We've got an idea what we want to do, and I think it will be quite nice what we're going to go. On the moment, I can't say anything yet. The board was completely in favor of this direction, but we just like to keep it till we're sure what we can do and how we're going to do it.
Are you talking about the pool site?
It's a pool
Yep.
site, yeah.
Good. That's good to hear.
Watch the place.
Lane, I'll get you to turn off, and Carolyn.
Well, what is it? What is being proposed?
He just said that they're keeping it under wraps, but they have made a decision.
Well, why keep it under wraps?
Because we're not sure if we can do it.
Okay. Okay, we've got lights off, so we're all good. Right, no other questions for Anne? No. Thank you. Mercedes is an apology today. Her report is on page 97, and there was also a document attached to Stella on the accreditation, and a lot going on in that space. If anyone has any questions, Tony can have a crack. No? No. Oh, good. Great. Thank you. Looks like we have finished for the day, so thank you, everyone. Turn off the recording. Yeah.